Hey there, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike, and welcome to another Superfly Comics Guy Omnibus review. Today, featuring the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 5. It's been a while since we've looked at a Silver Age book, and I thought this would fill that gap nicely. We'll be taking a look at the cover, the spine, the contents collected, the build quality, and a flip through where I can share my thoughts, opinions, and recommendations, and we can find out how well this book holds up to the previous volumes. So, if you enjoy the video at any point, you know how to show it, and feel free to leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. But with that out of the way, kick back, relax, and join me as we take a look at this Silver Age saga. Okay friends, so we're starting off with the dust jacket to this book. I have here the variant cover to the omnibus. Absolutely stunning. This is one of my favorite omnibus covers for Silver Age Spider-Man. There is a standard edition cover available as well. And I remember when this book was first announced, I was tempted to get that one at first, but I looked at this one and I was like, there's no way. This is so much more representative of the art that you're going to get inside the book. It just represents the book better. So I had to go with this one, and it really is just a fantastic image. Here is the spine of the book. So this is the newer Silver Age design. You can see the smaller font. It's got the image down there at the bottom of the spine and the volume number. Here, this being a Silver Age book, we do get the tried and true Marvel cover gallery. This book collects the Amazing Spider-Man 143 to 180, the annual 10 and 11, and Nova 12. It's got a cover price of $125 US and $157 Canadian. Let's flip her over and show you underneath the dust jacket. So we have a bit of a plain Jane design, or a plain Mary Jane design. Haha, so clever. For the board here, it's just the Amazing Spider-Man logo in blue. Spine is similar as well. Different image on the spine there. And the back, you got the classic Amazing Spider-Man web. But with that out of the way, let's start taking a flip through and examine some of the stories. Okay, so flip through time. As usual, I'm going to try to minimize spoilers. However, there's going to be very, very minor spoilers pertaining to details about the story of Gwen Stacy, and it kind of carries on from Volume 4. I assume most people, most comic fans, most Spidey fans will know the story of Gwen Stacy, but just in case, I thought I'd throw that out there. I remember, this isn't my favorite of the Amazing Spider-Man Silver Age Omnis, I'll say right off the bat, but I am quite excited to talk about certain aspects of it. We got a table of contents here, which I do quite like. It's cool to see, one, from a historical point of view, when these issues were coming out, but also it can help you organize your reading and help you if you want to go back and look up a specific issue or whatever, really. Got a forward here by Jerry Conway talking a little bit about one of the biggest stories in here. And honestly, we might as well just talk about the elephant in the room, because that's exactly what it is. In this story, in this omnibus, is where you're going to be getting the original Clone Saga. Now, fans of Spidey or Spidey comics will know that the 90s Clone Saga was one of the most controversial, one of the most notorious and infamously bad and overly drawn out eras in Spider-Man history. But maybe not everybody knows that technically the Clone Saga started here in the 70s. So minor spoilers for Volume 4, but that volume contained the night Gwen Stacy died, the death of Gwen Stacy story. Spider-Man's first true love interest, I will say. Yes, technically there are technicalities to that, but we'll say she was his first true love interest. And in Volume 4, her life was taken at the hands of the Green Goblin. Now, Gwen, from my understanding, was quite a popular character with the fans back then, and they received massive, massive backlash. Marvel received massive backlash from the fans after the death of Gwen Stacy. And Stan Lee, gotta love the guy, but he wasn't so great at taking harsh criticism, from what I understand. This harsh criticism from the fans was, you could tell it was eating away at him, and Jerry Conway talks a little bit about this, but basically it led to him coming into the writer's office at Marvel one day and being like, hey, you guys are pretty bright, do something, figure it out, but bring Gwen Stacy back. Now that was super significant at the time, and a big undertaking, because for the longest time the rule at Marvel was that we're not like other comic publishers. There's that cool cover from the Dust Jacket. Sorry, I had to pause to point that out. Yeah, we're not like the other publishers. When somebody dies in our comics, they stay dead. Now, it's kind of funny looking back at that now, because it seems like that's completely flipped on its head. People get revived in comics all the time, whether it's through weird magic or science-y explanations or being brought back from the dead, whatever it is. But point is, back then, this was serious. So Gwen Stacy dying, the idea was that it would be permanent, but the writers had to find a way to bring her back. But what did they do? Well, the story's called The Original Clone Saga, so I'll let you guys figure that out. But that's definitely a very, very strong opening for this book. Now, actually, let me flip back here, because this is another one of my favorite stories. The Longest 100 Yards. I really liked this story in here, because some people might just see this as a throwaway, one-off story, but for me, this is one of the most memorable issues from the entire book, because it centers around Spidey, obviously, but also this father who's trying to save his kid who's been kidnapped and held hostage by some criminals, and it basically delves into the lengths that this father will go to save his kid, and I just found it really, really touching. The Longest 100 Yards refers to his sports background. I won't spoil how it ends, but it's a surprisingly dark story for the time. So that I was really, really impressed by that. Oh yeah, you get a redesigned Sandman here, which is an interesting choice. We'll just go past that. One of the other fun things about these Silver Age omnibuses is you get a lot of letter pages at the end of issues. Here, let me see if I can find one. Yeah, there we go. Letters from the fans writing in, voicing their thoughts about each of the issues. That's one of the coolest parts about the Silver Age Omnis, is you get to see the letter pages, and you get a window into the past of what fans at the time are writing about. But in general, other stories you're getting in here follow that similar sort of Silver Age episodic, I guess, format, or rather, if I explain that a little better, each of these issues a lot of the time feels like an episode of a cartoon where they're perfectly enjoyable on their own. Each issue tends to be its own story. So you'll see villains like some heavy hitters like Scorpion and Jackal and Shocker and Sandman and Hammerhead and Dr. Octopus and Kingpin and Molten Man and actually the Green Goblin. How is that possible? But then you mix that in with some total D-list characters as well. Characters where even a Spidey superfan like myself might scratch his head at certain names like Cyclone or Mirage, or the Spider-Mobile becomes a villain at some point, if you can believe it or not. Or Stegron, or the Spider Slayer, or Hitman. So it's a mixed bag. But then on the other side, on the hero side, you also get a lot of cameos like Nightcrawler or Punisher or Nova, for instance. Yeah, there's Nightcrawler. But arguably, one of the biggest stars of the show here is Ross Andru, the artist. So Ross Andru came in a little bit after John Romita Sr. and after Gil Kane. The way I view it is John Romita Sr. really made the series feel like Spider-Man. He gave it that definitive look. But Ross Andru, who I don't feel like is talked about often enough, Ross Andru made the city feel like New York City, meaning that in his panels and in his art, like say if Spidey was swinging around, Ross Andru would really make an effort to include notable landmarks from New York in his art. So you can really, well, I'm not that familiar with the city myself. I've never been there, but you can tell, like, you might see like the Chrysler building in the background or something like that. And it really just sells the notion that, it makes it more believable that this is taking place in New York. But overall, it's a mixed bag. I don't think this volume is as memorable as the other volumes. And taking a quick glimpse at the extras section, this is always a treat to look at, especially for Silver Age books. There's quite a lot of extras in here, but it just feels so much more meaningful in a Silver Age book because the material is just so much older in comparison. A lot of the time it really feels like you're taking a walk through history, like you're looking through a museum of old art. But generally speaking, you have, bonus covers in here. You have you have an editorial from Stan Lee, pin-ups. Hold on, let me see if I can find. Yeah, there's the cover to the Dust Jacket, the direct market cover. So it's a collaboration between Gil Kane and John Romita Sr. Now with Gil Kane, I don't really like the way he draws Spider-Man because he tends to draw him with these teardrop eyes that don't really sell the look that I'm looking for. But you can see in comparison when John Romita Sr., when they collaborate, you can see the original with Gil Kane has the teardrop eyes, but then you have that more aggressive look that John Romita Sr. brings in. So he kind of cleaned it up, I guess you could say. That's the look I really like for Spidey. Anyway, you have other stuff like original art. That's super cool to see in Silver Age books. Original art. You have what else? Some more covers, some house ads, some comedic original art, more covers, and then you have what's pretty interesting is Jerry Conway's intro to Clone Genesis, the Clone Genesis trade paperback, which is part of the 90s Clone Saga, and it's interesting because he basically reflects on, how he feels about being the originator of the original Clone Saga. But that'll do it for your extras section. Oh, and there is the standard edition cover for this omnibus. For build quality, this omnibus has 880 pages. There's the eye you get. It's honestly not really impressive. I think they could have done a better job. And this is quite a big downside to this book. The build quality is quite disappointing. So you don't tend to get much gutter loss because this is a Silver Age book, and it has that sort of buffered white space in the middle, which helps avoid gutter loss, and you don't tend to really have spread pages in these old issues that often. But I gotta say, the page quality is really poor in this omnibus. Excessive amounts of bleed through that you'll notice it pretty frequently, even on pages that have this much color. The pages are very, very thin. Even if I flip back to the beginning here, you can probably see on camera, it's very, very easy to see through the pages. This is printed at the IMAC or iMac printer in Turkey, which is notorious for having pretty poor page quality, at least in my opinion, because this isn't exactly a small book in terms of content. It still has 40 issues, which I believe is the same as Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1, but this is the thinnest of those first 5 Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus volumes. And that just goes to show just how thin these pages are. So that's probably one of the most disappointing parts about this book. And now to quickly wrap up with some closing thoughts. Overall, I would say that this is the weakest of the first 5 Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus volumes. It is a Silver Age book, so it can be a slow read, but I will say that I think it's cool how this omnibus, this time period, they started to experiment more with multi-issue sagas. A lot of the time, I describe these Silver Age books as episodes of a cartoon show, so you just kind of read an issue and it's its own story. But it's cool to see how they were experimenting with telling a story over the course of multiple issues. So it starts off pretty strong with stories like the original Clone Saga. That's probably the biggest draw to this book. And for me also, that story, The Longest 100 Yards, I really enjoyed. And it ends, intriguingly too, with a New Goblin Saga. But all of the stories in between, they kind of tend to meander, and they didn't end up being all that memorable, at least for me anyway. But I will say, if you enjoyed the previous 4 volumes, then it's a fair bet that you'll at the very least be interested in checking this out. And that's exactly why it's on my shelf. I enjoyed the first 4 volumes, so I was pretty happy to pick this one up, and I'm looking forward to checking out volume 6 as well. But that's been my review of the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 5, so you let me know what you thought about this book, the series, this time period, the stories inside, like the original Clone Saga. Let me know down below your thoughts, but thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to catch you in another video real soon, so you have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, you keep reading. Bye-bye, guys.